y'all, welcome back to Campfire Conversations. I am hanging around a campsite with a couple of my friends, Alfredo and Matt. And if you listen to the last couple episodes, we talk about practical, tactical ways to journey in your leadership in 20 minutes or less. And our goal is to share vulnerable stories or thoughts that we've had along the way. And today, what we want to do is talk about coaching and mentorship. And I know all three of us are very fortunate to have people who believe in us or give us borrowed belief. And I think about this gentleman who reached out to me and said, Robert, I need help. I need coaching. This was just like 2 days ago. I said, tell me what's going on. He said, I'm about to lead 250 people and I've never done that before. And so I called him up and I said, you're leading 250 people? He said, yeah, man, it's super stressful. I said, how many people report to you? 7. I said, you lead 7. And those 7 lead their reports and so on and so forth. So let's just bite size this. You only got 7. He goes, 7? I didn't lead 7. I said, your job is to mentor 7 and show them how to mentor others. He said, that's good. He said, what book should I read? I said, well, what challenges do you guys have? Well, everyone's different. I said, well, then I guess you're reading 7 books. And every single one of them had a unique thing that they needed to work on. And the first thing, though, that we realized was he needed to go in and extend trust. That's first. Extend trust and then try and earn it along the way. And so as soon as he started biting down this goal, he said, I don't have time like the last guy because he had 8 months and didn't make impact. And so I know I'm going to have less time. And I said, well, if you want to get somewhere fast, you need to get a mentor who's already been where you've gone. And I want to stress this to the listeners. 10 years ago, experience was a good way to learn. It's also the slowest way. And in a world moving faster than it's ever has, and today's slower than what tomorrow will look like, you should grab a mentor or coach or get into a growth group or something like that. And so, we left off talking about jumping in a mastermind. We'd love to have you. We run a mastermind. It's really simple. Once a week. It's a low commitment to the group, but it's a huge commitment to yourself. And it's been really cool because we've seen about 60 people pop in and out. But there's only about 40 or 50 people who really want it. And that's fine because once you want to be the student, the teacher will appear. And so that's how we met. We met because one of our greatest mentors, John Maxwell, put us in a room together. And I think about mentors can only help you if you prepare for that mentorship, preparing with questions. And that's actually like what's so intriguing. You asked such a good question, right? My friend who called me, how do I lead 250 people? Led with the great questions. Very easy to mentor, and most of us always have the answers. What are some questions that you ask your mentors?
One of my favorite questions to ask isn't so much about skill set. I think it has more to do with significance. Was it worth it? Right? Because you always have to trade something. And I'm always curious about what is required, right? What level of sacrifice was required for you to achieve the kind of success that led to the significance, right? Because it doesn't always start with significance, but a lot of times we say, man, I want to be rich, or I want to have what Robert has, or I want to have what Matt has. And it's okay. Well, before you ask for that, make sure you understand what's going to be required of you, because maybe it means, and we've talked about this with the relationships or rocket ships, maybe that means that your best friend that you've been hanging out with for the past 20 years, maybe that means that you don't hang out with that guy no more. Maybe it's, hey, you unwind by playing video games and you're going to have to let that go because that's not what the people who you want to be like do on a regular basis, right? So first, for me, it's always understanding the trade-off. So I always start with, hey, this is what I think I want. What sacrifice is required to get to the level that you're at? But the other thing that I want to say about mentors before we go any farther, I think the mistake we make sometimes is we look for a mentor that's too far ahead.
Oh, yeah.
And you got to look for a mentor that's 1 or 2 steps ahead of you. And you look to mentor somebody who's just 1 or 2 steps behind. Because if they're too far behind, they're not going to get it. And even if they kind of get it, they're not going to have developed the muscle and the grit to stick with it, right? But my first question is always, what is required? Because I need to make sure I've got that and I'm ready and I'm prepared. And so that's one of my first questions I always ask. What's required of me?
That's interesting. I got a text yesterday that said, hey, and it's too fresh for me to share names and everything, but we'll get them on this podcast and share the story. But they said, hey, do you have any experience in this particular area? And I said, why? I said, we want to live a more balanced life. I said, how can you live a balanced life when you're trying to grow something of significance? And they said, that's true. I said, you need to set some boundaries around this. Like, we're going to do this hard for this period of time. And I said, and it's like you were talking about, just make sure with what you're working on is worth the trade-off. And so we started walking through it, like, hey, what's the payout here? Where are we making impact? And we started figuring out it was worth what they were giving up at that very moment, because they're thinking 10x. But a lot of times we're looking at addition problems, not multiplication problems. And so we're losing something or letting something go, but we're not really getting a big return on that trade-off. And so I know I'm walking through some seasons right now, and I wouldn't wish it on anybody, but the impact that we're making, I don't know, it's too early to tell, but I think it's going to be worth it. And so we had that conversation and said, if you're working on something bigger than you, the season that you're in will be worth it. But if it's not much bigger than tomorrow, then I wouldn't lose what you're about to give up. And so we've set some boundaries. We said August or September. We said if we're still in the same spot we are then maybe we're chasing the wrong rabbit. And so what is the question you asked your mentor?
I don't know. I was trying to think about that too. I think sometimes too, when people get mentors, they try to like lead the ship and treat their mentor like an employee. I don't feel like I do that. I feel like it's not too hard for me to just release the reins and be like, look, man, I don't know what we're doing here. What do you think about this situation? So I think it's important when you hire somebody to let them do what you hire them to do. Let them be the leader in that room for the moment. So like when we're doing quarterly meetings or whatever, I just feel like I'm an employee in the room and my mentor is taking over, right? And so and take the advice when they give it to you. Don't fight them on it, right? So I don't think I come with loaded questions. I don't think I try to steer the ship. I think when you hire somebody, you let them steer it. That's why you hire them, all right?
You came with the loaded direction. You knew exactly where you wanted to go. You just didn't totally know how to get there. And so you didn't have to say, hey, how do I achieve this thing? You said, these are the things I want to achieve. And really, my job or any mentor is to ask questions to make sure that the why is clearly defined, because that how becomes substantially easier, right? And we talk about if you clearly define a goal, you're halfway there. And so for you, it was very easy to mentor you because you came prepared. You knew exactly what you wanted. And we talked about it actually at the beginning of the year. I said, Matt, are you willing to step back in your business for a period of time? And he said, you were reluctant at first.
Yeah.
And actually, I called you and I said, hey, buddy, you're so good at what you do. You've been actually there too long. We got to start pulling you back out of your desire to get you back to your desired future. And so now we started asking questions. How do we get around that? What do we do? We're starting asking questions in the financial meetings. And so I think if you don't have a loaded question, you got to have at least a loaded direction or a clearly defined why. And so make sure that your mentor can pull that out of you too.
Yeah.
Like, for example, you go to the gym, and if you want, every day is chest day, if you want your chest to get bigger and your mentor wants you to do leg day, you're not going to achieve the results you want. And eventually resentment will build and you'll stop doing it. And so that's what the trade-off, right?